first person shooters rule the world. Well, at least the gaming world. I find myself thinking often uh, throughout the years on why. Why are first person shooters always number one? The Call of Duties, the CS:GOs, the PUBGs, the I'm not sure if Apex Legends or anything like that. I know they're shooters, but I'm not sure if they're first person shooters because, apparently all you need to do is switch to view and it's like a whole new genre. It's third person shooter now. It's kind of weird. I know that those are like, I guess, arena based competitive games. I wouldn't even know because I'm not into them. Not because I don't like them, because there are games that I'm not into that I definitely don't like. But I can 100% see the fun in these type of games. But with my problem specifically, it's just that they're not meaty enough for me to sink my teeth into. Meaning that like the gameplay for me, at least the loop, is not substantial enough for me to come back and play this game on the regular. I'm not even sure how these first person shooter type games slash competitive games, Valorant, stuff like that. I'm not even sure if they're supposed to. Well, of course, you can play any game anytime you want. Number one part, the most important part about that is that it's fun, right? That's the key thing that honestly some people tend to forget, right? Because I'll talk about that more in a second. Fun, that's the key word. If I remember, because my brain is just spider web of 100 thoughts, just all trying to grapple for supremacy. I see the allure in these games, as opposed to like other games that I don't see the allure in, like simulators. And when I say simulators, I mean like farming simulators, or there are some simulators that I can understand, like even airplane simulators, or honestly even airplane games in general, like Ace Combat. If that's still around, I know that was an old school one growing up. It is still around. I'm pretending like it's not. I saw a recent one maybe a year or two ago. I think it was like 9 or something like that. I don't know, man. Don't quote me. I'm not knocking on these games. I'm just saying that these games are games that I've always avoided because I'm just like, oh, that's not interesting at all to me, you know? And I couldn't understand how other people can get into it unless you were like some sort of a plane specialist or an enthusiast, or, in that case, I go, now suddenly it becomes cool. Something that I don't like becomes cool when I see that someone else has such a high interest in it. I don't know how that works for me. Like you can come up to me and go like, "Hey Dan, do you like pool?" And I go, "Not really. I mean, I can see why people play it, but I don't really enjoy it." But if you show me the best player alive and you're like, "Look what this man can do," I'm all in. I'm like, "I got to see this." It's very weird how my brain works, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one here. I guess I admire greatness, and I guess I would say that the average person does too. First person shooters are those type of games that I always would play for a while and I'm like, "Oh, this is cool." And then after like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, I'm like, "All right, I've had my fill." And I can say that about like the vast majority of first person shooters that I played from CS:GO to um Hunt Showdown, which personally I think that's the best like first person shooter slash competitive game that I've ever played. I actually spent more than an hour and a half playing Hunt Showdown. That game was, it was, atmospheric. Maybe I'll talk about that some more in the future because like I thoroughly enjoyed that. And this is coming from someone who once again is not into like competitive type games or whatever. Now I understand that a lot of why I'm not crazy about competitive games slash first person shooters slash competitive games is because it's a lot of that has to do with my biology, like my chemistry, which means the person, my experiences. So I understand that when someone says they don't like a video game, the first thing I think of, I don't know about you, but I think of the person themselves. Like, oh, what kind of person is this? Is this like a studious, like quiet, not so social person. I'm like, okay, you look like someone who would enjoy a tactical game, like a turn-based RPG or something like that. Like there's sometimes you'll have a friend or even someone you don't know, and just by the way they look, and also based on the history of their interest in certain type of games, you can automatically just go like, okay, you're not gonna like this game. I know when I there's specific games whenever I'm interested in the game, I usually think about some of my friends, a very small amount of friends that I have left in my life. And I think to myself, like, would they like this game? And then I start breaking down their personalities individually. I'll start going like, okay, she would definitely like this game, and then he would not. So, uh, personal preferences, biology, chemistry, whatever you want to add to the mix, all that is in the same bucket, which is you or a person's interest. That has, in my opinion, pretty much everything to do why a person doesn't like a video game. Not, of course, there's always exceptions, right? This is the rule, not the exception. Probably fuck that metaphor up. But point is, there are some people who are genuinely they just want to have fun. People who are smart and studious and usually like tactical games, they're like, fuck it, let's play some first person shooters. Those are my type of people because that shows it's attractive to me when someone is open minded. Someone who's willing to try, even if they don't like it. They can play a session or two and go like, nah, this ain't for me. I have fun, but it ain't for me. I like that because it's all honest. And in this world today, it's like no is negative. If you say no, no is automatically associated with negativity, right? Even if it's something you genuinely don't want to do or don't want to say, like if you say no to someone, a friend, a family member, a coworker, a teacher, it's like I'm so scared to say no because it's associated with, you know, negativity. Like it's also some people view it as confrontation. If I say no, that person might get confrontational. So I'll just play along and say yes and then go to this bullshit party that I don't want to go to. I'd rather be in my robe at home, free balling, playing Valorant or CSGO, since that seems to be the consistent number one competitive FPS that I see, which is it's wild. Sometimes it really blows my mind how someone can hold the throne for so long, and even outside of video games. Like I'm into like I've said this like 50 times. I'm into like MMA and boxing, and I like combat sports. And there's a few great athletes that I can say have been reigning for so long. And I always think to myself, like, wow, this person, this particular athlete, has been fighting for so long at an elite level. And even though they may not be the champion anymore or whatever, they're still dangerous, and they're still there. Some fighters are over 40. You know what I mean? Like, I'll give you an example, like Emelianenko, like Fedor. He's his final bout is coming soon, but God, man, when a fighter says they're gonna retire, 9 times out of 10 they don't. And it's like I don't even hold that against them because that's what they did their entire life. What are you gonna do now? How are you gonna tell a warrior to pick up a peaceful hobby? They don't know. They need to have something to. That's why these motherfuckers like Donald Cerrone and all that, they get into like crazy ass sports where they're fucking barrel rolling in planes and jumping over hills on a fucking motorbike. Like they need adrenaline. They need something that they can physically do. So it's like I get it. I don't judge when fighters usually don't retire after they say they will because they come home to that crushing normal life. Like how average, how painfully average life must seem like after you've been training and moving and winning and losing and feeling like the zenith of emotions, like the highest, strongest, deepest feelings you can feel as a human. And then you go back to like a normal life where you're sitting in front of a computer or you're going through some notes. If you become like one of those commentators and you're like, yeah, wow, he is a undefeated fighter. Like, you're going to lose your mind. So I understand. Completely lost my original point here. But I guess to go back to my original point is that I can't knock people who like FPS games, even though they're not for me. Like, I get it. Maybe it's that fast thrill, right? Like it's because in essence, like I said earlier, oh shit, I actually remembered. Earlier I mentioned fun, right? And that's a very important word here because historically video games have been fun, right? I think of like WWE, right? Like wrestling, for example. I used to love wrestling growing up, right? Like WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, uh, Impact, I believe. So many. I used to be a huge wrestling head. Not. I can't even say not so much anymore. I like not at all anymore. I haven't watched an entire program of wrestling in years. It's just, to be perfectly honest with you, it's pretty unbearable. Like it's very cringy. Not to offend anyone, because this is coming from someone who's, the first wrestling event, or at least the first memorable wrestling event that I remember seeing was when I think it was Earthquake versus Hulk Hogan. Yeah, there you go. I'm showing my age here. And I remember it was like, I think it was Earthquake. Was it Typhoon? It was Earthquake, I believe. And they had this whole bit where Earthquake sat on Hulk Hogan. He almost killed him, and he had to be like, Hulk Hogan had to be wheeled out or carried in a stretcher. I remember, and they showed like a close up of a teddy bear. I remember like bawling as a kid because I'm like, oh my god, they killed Hulk Hogan, and I was hooked since then. And for years, and I've stopped watching wrestling like 2016 maybe. That's it's a few years ago, sure, but that goes to show you how long I've been watching it. I'm 30, I'm in my late 30s. So since I was probably most definitely single digits, like maybe 9, 8 years old, I've been watching wrestling, and then I just stopped in 2016. So I'm trying to give you a very comprehensive background on my life when it comes to wrestling. It was such a huge part of my life. I went to a whole shitload of wrestling events. I've been to Royal Rumbles, I've been to WrestleManias, you know, and for like the last 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, I still use my fingers to count. For the last 6 years, I have not. Well, I tried to watch like Royal Rumble recently, and oh Lord, I couldn't. I just couldn't. It was just like everything in my body was screaming, like, "What are you doing? Turn this off!" Like I just couldn't. It was just so bad. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of people out there, or all three people who listen to this. I know a lot of them would be offended, and I'm like, I'm not trying to offend you, but it's that shit was terrible, man. It was so bad, and there's no other way to say it. It's just. Anyways, my original point is that originally wrestling was supposed to be at least WWE, the WWE program, right? Historically, probably not, but WWE's when it comes to WWE, WWF, WWWF, historically, it was supposed to be a PG audience. Wrestling was supposed to be for kids. I remember being like I just gave you that whole example of Earthquake and Hulk Hogan. That was for me. That was for kids. If you go back and you see the segment and you have to grit your teeth through it because it's pretty. You're like, how the fuck did I fall for that? It's very cheesy now, but when you're a kid, you believe that shit, and it was for me. His, Historically, WWE's wrestling was for children. So, and then as WWE went on, it became adult oriented, like the Attitude Era, right? Which everyone goes insane about because they believe. I believe like the way people talk about New Vegas being the standout in the Fallout series is the way people talk about the Attitude Era being the standout in the WWE history. Like they say it's the best era in wrestling, and that was not PG. That was not child oriented. That was for young adults and adults. It was tits, ass, cursing, very controversial skits involving Vince McMahon and Booker T, which everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's still funny as shit, honestly, whenever I see it. Like, it was for adults. And now it traditionally went back to its audience, which is PG. So, how does this relate to video games? It's like historically, video games have been a lot like WWE. They started off arcadey for kids. Everyone thought, hey, video games are for kids. If you're an adult playing video games in the 80s, you're a loser. Go get a job. What are you doing? So then, as technology got more sophisticated, and as developers and directors or whatever, or publishers or game developers, game companies, as they got more ambitious, they started experimenting. You suddenly have narratives in video games. You have open worlds in video games. You have multiple choices in video games. And then video games moved away from the traditional audience, which was kids. And they started doing wild, amazing shit, like Zelda, for example, right? Mario and Zelda, not the same thing. Same company, same creator. I keep forgetting it. Is it Miyamoto? Ah, man, don't crucify me. But they come from the same company, and I believe Mario and Zelda, the characters themselves, came from the same creator. Two different games. I loved, but Mario. When I was younger, I played. I believe the first video game I've ever played was Super Pitfall for the Atari. If I'm not mistaken, that was what, like, it piqued my interest. I was like, oh man, this is cool. You get to, like, jump on little ropes, and my little brain actually understood that those little green blobs were supposed to be alligators, and those brown dookie strings were ropes. My brain understood that. And I was like, this is cool. This little machine that you have this controller in your hand, you can literally control what's going on the screen. I remember my brain just being blown away. So even though the Atari and Super Pitfall is what introduced me to video games, what really hooked me, and I was like, oh, I want to do this for as long as I can. And here I am in my late 30s still doing it because of this game. Was the first Super Mario. Like the one that came in packaged with the Nintendo, the Duck Hunt slash, that one was the one that I was like, okay, this is what I want to do, forever possibly, because I don't see myself stopping any video game. I mean, I can see myself maybe taking a break or so, but never stopping, like, cold turkey, going a whole year or something. Like, I can't do that. I'll give you a few days, maybe a week even. But point is, Super Mario was that revolutionary to me, and not only to me, but to also video games in general, as well as other people. Like, that is the game that's like the poster child of video games, still till today. Bruce Lee is the poster child of martial arts. Hulk Hogan is the poster child of wrestling. Although some people may say, like John Cena now, the newer generation. Um, Super Mario is the poster child of video games. I don't know if I just said that. I think I did. But Super Mario is the poster child of video games. Oh shit, did I just stop this? Oh. Yeah, my bad. I fucking pressed the space bar. I don't even know if I'm still recording. I think I am. Hope so. Um so that was the most revolutionary game to me. But Zelda and Super Mario, they're two different beasts. When I played Zelda, it was like I was on a journey. When I played Super Mario, I was like, this is just fun. Like, this is pure fun, and I want to get to the end of this. With Zelda, it was like, wow, I can go anywhere. So it was like they both of those feelings were monumental in my childhood. The feeling of endless exploration, and then the feeling of just pure joy. Like, both games offered me just unshakable memories. that, like, not to sound dramatic, but like also shaped me as a person. Like, you know, even like the later games of Zelda, and as we speak today, I have a Zelda. I have a tattoo of the Triforce, and I'm like, that's how monumental that game was to me growing up. It was amazing. And I can't wait for Breath of the Wild too. Like I really enjoyed part one. I think it's it called Breath of the Wild too, or Tears of something. I gotta I'm terrible at this. For a guy who talks about video games, you would think I would have more concrete facts instead of just straight opinions, but I can't do that, and I'm not. First person shooters are awesome, and I'm not knocking on them. It may sound like it, but to some, but it is. It also makes me think this, right? Like first person shooters are the most popular genre in video games across the world, right? Not just the US. So it makes me think like to go back to what I was saying, how WWE originally was PG and then eventually turned mature and then went back to PG. Video games, in essence, what I'm trying to say, the long-winded way, is they should be fun, right? And I believe when I see someone play an FPS of some sort, I think in my mind like they want fun. They want quick, immediate fun because that is what they bought their console for or their computer for or whatever, their mobile phone, their Switch, their Steam Deck, their Stadia, rest in peace. That's where they bought it so they can have fun. Of course you have those dorky ass players like me who want a deeper game with like narrative and they want their little cartoon character's mouth to say some deep shit, and then you start to forget like, oh, of course fucking Sailor Moon shouldn't be giving me life advice. It's a cartoon. Like sometimes you expect substance from everything, and that's not, you don't need substance in everything. If you want substance in your life, do cool shit that requires substance, consistent substance. Reading a book, working out, establishing great relationships with your friends. All these things are consistent substance, right? Anything else, you can pretty much go ape shit. Play a game that involves a green goblin taking a shit on a blue goblin. Do you know what I mean? There's no substance in that whatsoever, but is it fun? Go for it. Go for it. Like, it's okay to have junk food every now and then. Do you know what I mean? As long as you don't make junk food your primary meal and it's the small portion of your diet, go ape shit. You know what I mean? Have a cookie every now and then. Have an ice cream. Have a donut. Have a taco. Have a pizza. Have a cheesesteak. Do do that. Don't cut it out from your diet. Just make it a tiny part of your diet. Don't eat this shit all the time, man. Like, I've already spoken about the stereotype of video gamers, like I feel like the public sees video, because now the public is acknowledging that video games are no longer just for small children. Esports is a big thing now, right? So you've got adults, young adults, and now before in the 80s of me growing up, whenever some the stereotype for a gamer was a small child with like glasses, and it's not, probably asthmatic because he always skips gym. And now it's a young man overweight with a Monster Energy can on his computer that's lit up to the gills with LED lighting, LED lighting on everything. I mean, I'm talking shit because as I'm saying this, I've got LED lighting on my keyboard, on my mouse pad, on my fucking mouse pad, dude. Like, how unnecessary is that? And I got it, and I like it. I can't even, and it's very minimal. It's just a little. Listen, the fuck is LED lights doing on a mouse pad? But whatever, it's cool. I like it. Point is, that's become also like a trope, right? Like LED lighting on it. It gets ridiculous. Even like whenever I'm seeing, I think it was PC gaming. I'm not even 100% sure. Whenever reviewing a product that happened to have, I think it was a mouse that happened to have LED lighting on it. The way they were describing it, it was like, "Hey, it has LED. This product is pretty cool. It has some issues, and then it also has some strengths." And then they go, "Oh yeah, it also has LED lighting too. Yay!" Like their tone was very like Like we get it. Like, it's not really a selling point. It ain't. But I don't know if corporate at companies are right. I don't know if LED products sell more than non-LED products. Do gamers care more about performance and less about aesthetic? Like, I don't know the numbers on that, but they do look cool. I mean, LED lights do. I mean, you can customize them and make them pulse and all that. Can you do without them? 110%. You don't need that shit. You genuinely don't. But here we are. That's the stereotype for gamers, and it's okay to play a game strictly for fun. That's okay, and not everything needs to have substance, especially a product that was like historically just made for fun. Like video games, for example. Like you got to kind of keep that into your mind. Like this is all just entertainment. And entertainment comes in very lots of forms, right? Like I said, some people would rather read a book for entertainment. Some people would rather listen to music for entertainment. Like I remember in the 80s, because there wasn't as many distractions like cell phones and video games. Although don't get me wrong, there was video games and lots of people were playing them. But I remember seeing movies and also friends, like you would come over and just have like listening parties. Like no one would really talk to each other. They'll bust out a CD player, if you guys know what that is, and put a CD in there, a compact disc, and close the CD player, and you'll just lay around with like your back on the floor and your legs on the bed, and you're just listening to fucking Nirvana or whatever is popular at the time. I was listening to a lot of Tupac growing up. So I had like All Eyes on Me and all of these CDs in my CD player, and that's what I would do. I would sit there and I would just listen to these. Big Notorious B.I.G. What was it? Life After Death, I believe, one of my favorite fucking albums. And or is it Ready to Die? I'm getting confused there. Point is, that's what we did for entertainment growing up. We would just and I read a shitload. I loved like horror stories. I loved biographies, and that was my definition of fun. And it's like now some people would consider that boring. Like, oh, if I'm gonna have fun, why the fuck would I stay home and read a book? Like that's not fun, and that's fine. I get that, but that's still entertainment. People buy books. Not unless it's work or you're doing some research and it's probably not entertaining. It's your job. But people would go out there and buy books for leisure, right? Like because they want to. That's entertaining to them. In fact, I'll go out on a limb and say that most people who buy them because they want to be entertained. I may be wrong, but I don't know. That's why I know that like me personally, Danny as a person, I I'm very open-minded when it comes to video games, and sometimes it may seem maybe many times it may seem like I'm playing devil's advocate, right? Like I'm talking shit about one side and then quickly joining it. I believe that's how the term goes. But that is genuinely how I feel most of the time. It's very difficult for me to like I always find a opposing feeling as well as a like contributing feeling, a supporting feeling. I'm always like whenever I talk to someone, I'm always trying to look at their viewpoint and then look at my viewpoint. And if I feel my viewpoint makes more sense, then I'm going to express that to you, and ultimately not agree with what you say. But I will tell you that I understand where you're coming from because I genuinely mean that. I do feel like in video games, as well as everything else, this isn't exclusive to video games, but there's a lot of like tribalism. Is that the word? I've said this many times before. I believe that, you've got the tribal thing going on. It's a human thing, like a team Xbox, team PlayStation, team PC, team Switch. God bless them. Team Steam Deck. Like, you've got people who just, they'll dig their heels in the sand and they would like, we're not going nowhere. This is what we are. They like identify with these products, which is like, a little sad, honestly, because it's like that you're the consumer. Like you have the right to play whatever fucking game you want. And you got to understand that at the end of the day, fun, to go back to that three-letter word that's so important yet so simple, fun. Are you having fun? If you're having fun, it does not fucking matter what are you playing on. It doesn't matter if it's a PC. It doesn't matter if it's a mobile phone. It doesn't matter if it's a console. Are you having fun? And I wish that more games were crossplay. From what I understand, crossplay is the thing that can definitely be implemented to like every game, but I guess it's a business decision not to. If I'm not mistaken, I remember reading something about that. That sucks, because ultimately you would have to buy an entire console just to play a game like I did. Like I bought a Nintendo Switch just to play Zelda. I'm not gonna lie to you because I'm not a big fan of mobile. What's the word I'm looking for? Um, Not disposable, portable. I'm not a big fan of portable gaming systems. Even if they're great, like the Steam Deck looks awesome, but it's just the idea of me having this thing that I don't know. I'm old school. I like to be grounded when I play my games. Even my laptop, like my laptop stays in my apartment 9 times out of 10. Even when I travel, I bring my Switch with me or whatever. But my laptop I treat as a desktop. I have a gaming laptop. And I know pre-builds and laptops are a little controversial in the PC world, but I'm not I've never built a PC. I've been thinking about it, and maybe my next build is going to be a actual build that I build myself. But I don't know. That shit was a little intimidating. I'm not gonna lie. When I first saw it, I was like, I don't know if I can do this, man. I don't want to fuck things up, you know. So I ultimately settled for a gaming PC. Which, by the way, also I bought this shit at the time. It was like the chip shortage. So if I wanted to build a PC, it was like 1800 dollars, and this one ended up being 1200, which is still pricey as fuck. But you know, here we are, right? That's me trying to justify my expensive ass buys. I will forever be one of those guys that just supports video games. FPSs are not tactical games, and I'm not big on turn-based fighting games. They're all right. I got to be in the mood for them, but I'm always going to be a proponent of just fun, and I understand why FPSs are at the top of the game because they're quick, they're dirty. It's just get in there, shoot, have all your fun, talk shit with your friends, and move out. You know what I mean? Turn off your system, move on with life. And honestly, in its core, that's what video games are. You can argue, like me, that, oh, games like that don't have any substance. I'd rather play a game that has a little more meaning. Yeah, so me too. Absolutely. But also, you have to understand that these games are supposed to be fun. In its essence, they're fun games. So I'm with you there. I would rather play something too that has like a narrative or something maybe a little more open world, that's exploratory. Those are my type of games. But still, you can't knock people who want to play FPSs as well as, you know, competitive games, Dota and, League of Legends. Like those games, they're fun and they're quick and they're, match based if I'm not mistaken. So you can just lose a match, win a match, win a match, lose a match, and just keep it going. You can keep this rhythm going for as long as you can, and I think it's cool. As long as with anything in life, as long as you're not like addicted to it to the point where it's like taking over your life or it's interfering with important things in your life. Like if you want to become an entrepreneur, it's fucking up your business moves there, or if you're looking for a job but you are not trying as hard because you're distracted by games. If it's affecting your life in a negative way, then regardless if it's an FPS or not, you should probably calm the fuck down. You should probably shut that off and really try to get your life in order. And after you get a rhythm going, then you can start playing games again. That goes with anything, though, right? Like, as long as you don't overdo it with anything in life, do it. And also, as long as you're not hurting anyone in any shape, way, or form, do it. Those are my dumb advice words for you. I I guess I can say that besides like Hunt, I can't think of any other like competitive type shooters that I was into. I'm trying to think now, like maybe when I was younger, like I remember friends being into SOCOM. I'm thinking like PS2 era. Like SOCOM was a big deal. People played that online, and I think it was like an early Call of Duty, if I'm not mistaken. But like that's when I started to see the competitive side of things and how a lot of my friends were playing it, and I was like, oh man, like they're this thing is taking over. Medal of Honor was another game that I actually played a few of those, but those aren't really cooperative. I think it was just a campaign mode on it. I doubt there was an online like internet competitive mode on it. Maybe I'm wrong, but They're here to stay, man, whether you like it or not, and just be understanding. You don't have to fucking like FPSs. I'm not putting you in a headlock here and forcing you to like them. I'm just saying if you don't like them, you don't like them. That's what it is. But at least understand that in its essence, video games are supposed to be fun, and you cannot deny that jumping inside of a match, killing a whole bunch of people, then jumping back out, that's not fun. How is that not fun? You're cutting out all of the fat from video games and just leaving the meaty juicy part. That's what FPSs are. And it's like if you're someone who can't see that, then I don't know what's wrong with you. You know what I mean? Like anyone can see it. You don't have to agree with it, but at least you can go, I understand where that's coming from. So let people have their fun, man. That's all I'm saying. Even if you don't like it, don't be that guy. Don't be that party pooper, dude. No one likes them. Thanks for listening. At this date and time, it is New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve would be the 31st of December, right? Or New Year's Day would be the first. I always get that confused. I don't know why. It shouldn't. It's not a confusing concept, but I always go, which one is New Year's Day? I can't explain to you. Whatever. You guys have fun. Don't overdo it. If you're gonna drink, don't go crazy, please, for the love of God. Be safe. Lord willing, I'll talk to you in the next year. It's just a few hours. I'll see you in a few hours, Lord willing. Be safe.